The fluorescent lights flicker as Marcus Thompson wipes his sweaty palms on his dress pants. His heart pounds against his chest as he watches the clock tick closer to 9 a.m. Through the courthouse window, he spots news vans gathering like vultures. At 12 years old, he's about to become the youngest witness in the county's biggest trial, but the secret he's kept for 3 years feels like it's burning a hole through his chest. Sarah Chin, the prosecuting attorney, enters the preparation room with a gentle smile that doesn't quite mask her obvious exhaustion. Dark circles under her eyes betray countless sleepless nights spent preparing for this case. She sets her coffee cup down and pulls up a chair across from Marcus, close enough to seem friendly, but far enough to avoid overwhelming him. "How are you holding up, Marcus?" she asks, adjusting her wire-rimmed glasses. The boy's only response is a slight shrug, his eyes fixed on the geometric patterns of the carpet. Sarah's seen countless witnesses prepare for testimony, but something about Marcus's demeanor suggests he's carrying more than just pre-trial jitters. The boy's fingers nervously trace the edges of his Pokemon notebook, his constant companion for the past 3 years. What Sarah doesn't know is that beneath the drawings of Pikachu and Charizard lie pages of careful observations written in a child's unsteady hand. License plate numbers, times, conversations overheard from his bedroom window that overlooks the restaurant's back alley. Outside the preparation room, the courthouse springs to life. The click of heels on marble floors, the murmur of gathering spectators, and the occasional burst of camera flashes create a symphony of anxiety that seeps under the door. Marcus flinches at each new sound, remembering the night of the fire, the crackling flames, the sirens, and the mysterious figures rushing away in the darkness. "Remember," Sarah says, leaning forward, "all you need to do is tell the truth about what you saw that night. Just focus on the fire and Mr. Wilson leaving the restaurant. Nothing else matters." She offers what she hopes is a reassuring smile, unaware that her simple instructions are about to collide with 3 years of buried truths. Marcus nods automatically, but his mind races with memories. The mayor's nervous laugh echoing in the alley, the police chief's cruiser parked behind the dumpsters well past midnight, the strange men in expensive suits who never came through the front door, and worst of all, the sound of his mother crying after Rick's visit, which drove Marcus to his late-night hiding spot behind the restaurant in the first place. A soft knock at the door makes them both jump. Marcus's mother peeks in, her face pale but determined. She's wearing her best dress, the one she saves for special occasions, but the makeup doesn't quite hide the fading yellow bruise near her jawline. "5 minutes until we need to be in the courtroom," she announces, her voice trembling slightly. As Sarah gathers her files, Marcus grips his notebook tighter. The Pokemon cover is worn now, its corners soft from constant handling. Inside, mixed between his childish drawings, lies enough evidence to shake their small town to its core. He thinks about the simple story he's supposed to tell, just another witness to James Wilson's exit before the fire, and weighs it against the full truth hidden in his notebook. The wall clock's ticking seems to grow louder as 9 a.m. approaches. Marcus stands on shaky legs, straightening his clip-on tie. Through the window, he catches a glimpse of James Wilson arriving, surrounded by expensive lawyers and supporters holding "Stand with Wilson" signs. The businessman's confident smile makes Marcus's stomach churn. Sarah places a gentle hand on his shoulder, guiding him toward the door. "Ready?" she asks, interpreting his silence as mere nervousness. Marcus takes a deep breath and clutches his notebook like a shield. In just a few minutes, they'll have to choose between the simple story everyone expects and the complex truth that could change everything. The weight of that decision feels almost unbearable as he steps into the courthouse hallway, moving closer to the moment that will define not just his life, but the future of his entire community. James Wilson struts into the courtroom like he owns it, flashing his $1,000,000 smile at the jury. Marcus shrinks in his seat as Wilson's eyes sweep past him. The businessman's reputation seems untouchable: local hero, charity founder, children's hospital donor. But Marcus knows the surveillance footage of Wilson leaving his restaurant minutes before it burst into flames isn't the real story. Not even close. The heavy wooden doors close with a resounding thud, and Judge Eleanor Martinez calls the court to order. Her steel gray hair and sharp eyes command respect. But even she seems impressed when Wilson's lead attorney, Michael Harrison, approaches the bench. Harrison's $1,000 suit and perfectly styled silver hair practically scream success. Exactly the image Wilson's defense team wants to project. Marcus watches from his hard wooden chair as Harrison begins his opening statement. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, his voice resonates through the courtroom. What we have here is a tragic accident being transformed into a witch hunt against one of our community's most beloved citizens. He gestures dramatically toward Wilson, who adopts a perfectly practiced expression of wounded dignity. From his position, Marcus can see the jury's reactions. Several nod sympathetically as Harrison lists Wilson's contributions to the community: the children's wing at St. Mary's Hospital, the annual Christmas toy drive, scholarships for underprivileged youth. A middle-aged juror wipes away a tear when Harrison describes how Wilson gave her daughter a job despite her troubled past. Sarah Chen rises for the prosecution's opening statement, her shorter stature and modest suit creating a stark contrast to Harrison's commanding presence. This case isn't about charity, she begins, her voice steady but lacking Harrison's theatrical flair. It's about a calculated crime committed by a man who thought his good deeds could buy him immunity. As she speaks, Marcus notices something that makes his blood run cold. In the back of the courtroom, partially hidden behind a column, stands Rick, his mother's boyfriend. Their eyes meet briefly, and Rick's subtle head shake carries a clear warning. Marcus's hand instinctively tightens around his notebook. The preliminary witnesses take the stand one by one. The fire marshal explaining the evidence of accelerants, the insurance investigator detailing Wilson's recent policy changes, the night security guard describing the events leading up to the fire. Through it all, Wilson maintains his composed demeanor, occasionally shaking his head in seemingly pained disbelief. But Marcus sees what others miss: the slight tremor in Wilson's hand when the prosecution mentions cell phone records, the quick glances he exchanges with the police chief seated in the back row, the way he tenses whenever someone mentions the restaurant's basement, a space that, according to Marcus's notebook, held secrets far darker than anyone suspects. A loud whisper from the gallery catches Marcus's attention. Two elderly women are discussing Wilson's character. "He paid for my grandson's surgery," one says. "A man like that would never commit arson." Marcus wants to scream that they don't know the whole story, that behind Wilson's charitable facade lies a web of corruption that has ensnared half the town. As the morning session nears its end, Sarah Chen announces, the prosecution calls Marcus Thompson to the stand. The courtroom falls silent. Wilson's confident smile flickers for just a moment, so briefly that only someone watching as carefully as Marcus would notice. As he rises on trembling legs, Marcus feels the weight of his Pokemon notebook in his jacket pocket, pressing against his heart like a secret trying to break free. The walk to the witness stand feels like miles. Each step brings him closer to a moment of truth that will either maintain the comfortable lies his town has lived with or unleash a storm of revelations that will wash away the corrupt foundations of their community. As he raises his right hand to be sworn in, Marcus makes his decision. The truth, all of it, has waited long enough. The defense attorney's smooth questioning suddenly hits a wall when Marcus goes off script. "I wasn't just walking by that night," he blurts out, his voice cracking. The courtroom leans forward as one. Marcus catches his mother's wide-eyed stare, her face draining of color. "I was hiding from Rick, Mom's boyfriend, because I saw him hitting her earlier. But that's when I saw something worse." A gasp ripples through the gallery. Sarah Chen freezes mid-objection, her pen hovering above her legal pad. Judge Martinez leans forward, her reading glasses perched on the edge of her nose, studying Marcus with renewed interest. In the back of the courtroom, Rick stands up abruptly, but two suited men, federal agents who have been quietly observing the trial, shift to block his exit. "Young man." Harrison recovers quickly, his practiced smile now strained. "Let's focus on the night of the fire. Did you or did you not see my client leaving the restaurant at 11:45 p.m.? Marcus grips the edges of the witness stand, his knuckles white. "I saw him leave through the back door at 11:43 p.m. exactly." I know because I wrote it down. He pulls out his Pokemon notebook, ignoring Harrison's attempt to interrupt. I wrote down everything I saw from that alley. I was there almost every night that summer, hiding from Rick. Sarah Chen rises. Your Honor, we need to address these new allegations. The witness will continue, Judge Martinez declares, silencing both attorneys with a sharp look. Marcus's voice grows stronger as he speaks. Mr. Wilson wasn't alone that night. Mayor Brooks was there too, and Chief Parker's police car was parked behind the dumpsters. I drew a picture of it. He holds up his notebook, its pages filled with detailed sketches in colored pencil, license plates, faces, times, dates. Wilson's composed facade cracks. He whispers urgently to Harrison, who looks increasingly alarmed. In the gallery, Mayor Brooks attempts to quietly leave but finds his path blocked by one of the federal agents, who simply shakes his head. I started watching them after the first night I hid there. Marcus continues, words tumbling out like water through a broken dam. They had meetings every Tuesday and Friday. Sometimes they'd bring big bags into the basement. Once I heard them talking about cleaning money, but they weren't doing laundry. I looked it up at the library. Sarah Chen recovers her composure, recognizing the magnitude of what's unfolding. Your Honor, given these revelations, the state requests a brief recess to confer with federal authorities who are present in the courtroom. But Marcus isn't finished. The fire wasn't just for insurance money, he says, his voice now clear and steady. They needed to destroy the evidence in the basement. I heard them planning it 3 days before, right after Agent Thompson started asking questions at City Hall. The courtroom erupts in chaos. Marcus's mother sobs openly, both in shock at her son's revelations and in shame at her failure to protect him from Rick. Wilson's wife collapses into her seat, while the mayor's face turns an alarming shade of red. Chief Parker reaches for his phone, but a federal agent smoothly plucks it from his hand. Through it all, Marcus maintains eye contact with Wilson, whose carefully constructed mask of benevolence has completely crumbled. The man who terrorized their town with his secret criminal empire now looks small and afraid, undone by the detailed observations of a 12-year-old boy who had nowhere else to hide. Judge Martinez bangs her gavel repeatedly, finally restoring order. This court is in recess, she announces, her voice cutting through the chaos. All parties will remain in the building. Federal agents to cure the defendants. She pauses, looking directly at Marcus. Young man, please accompany the marshal to my chambers, and bring that notebook. As Marcus steps down from the witness stand, still clutching his Pokemon notebook, he feels lighter than he has in 3 years. Behind him, he can hear the sound of handcuffs clicking shut and his mother's quiet words of pride through her tears. The truth, once unleashed, has taken on a life of its own, and there's no turning back now. Like dominoes falling, Marcus's words topple the carefully constructed lies. He describes the secret midnight meeting, the mayor's nervous pacing, the police chief's whispered threats, and Wilson's briefcase full of cash. The defense attorney's objections become increasingly desperate as Marcus recounts 3 years of overheard conversations, mysterious late-night deliveries, and coded phone calls, all meticulously documented in his Pokemon notebook. In Judge Martinez's chambers, federal agents crowd around Marcus's notebook, now carefully protected in an evidence bag. FBI Special Agent Diana Roberts gently turns the pages, her trained eyes widening at each new revelation. What appears at first glance to be childish doodles reveals itself as a sophisticated surveillance log. Between sketches of Pikachu and Charizard are detailed notes, dates, times, license plate numbers, and snippets of conversations, all recorded in a child's careful handwriting. July 15th, Agent Roberts reads aloud. Mayor Brooks said shipment delayed 3 times while looking at his phone. Drew a star because it seemed important. She turns to Marcus. Why did you draw stars? Stars meant they were scared when they said it. Marcus explains quietly. Like when Chief Parker kept saying Wilson needs to handle the Rodriguez problem last month. He used his nervous voice, the one he uses on TV when there's bad news. Outside the chambers, the courthouse has transformed into a command center. FBI agents sweep through the building, securing documents and preventing anyone from leaving. Through the window, Marcus watches as news helicopters circle overhead, their cameras capturing the stream of official vehicles arriving at the courthouse steps. Sarah Chen sits beside Marcus, her earlier exhaustion replaced by fierce determination. She's already called in a domestic violence advocate for Marcus's mother, who is giving her own statement about Rick's abuse to a sympathetic detective. "You've been incredibly brave," Sarah tells Marcus, "but I need to know, did anyone ever threaten you directly?" Marcus hesitates, then opens his notebook to a page from 2 months ago. The drawing shows the back of the restaurant, but in the corner is a small stick figure with angry eyes. "Rick saw me once, behind the restaurant. He said kids who spy end up missing. But then Mr. Wilson came out and told him to leave me alone. I think Mr. Wilson thought I was just a scared kid hiding from home. He didn't know I was watching everything." Agent Roberts exchanges glances with her colleagues. The pieces are fitting together. Wilson's charity work with troubled youth wasn't just for show. It was a perfect cover for their operation. Who would suspect the beloved philanthropist of using his restaurant's basement to launder money for a multi-state criminal enterprise? The notebook reveals more with each page. Detailed drawings of cars that match known drug traffickers' vehicles, dates that align perfectly with suspicious bank transactions, and conversations that connect local officials to crimes across 3 states. Marcus had unknowingly created a documentary record that would take down not just Wilson, but an entire criminal network. Here's the worst part, Marcus says, flipping to a newer page. "Last week, I heard them planning something big. Mayor Brooks said they needed to clean house before the federal audit." He points to a detailed drawing of the restaurant's basement, complete with tiny labeled boxes representing what he'd glimpsed through the delivery door. Agent Roberts straightens suddenly. "Judge Martinez," she says urgently, "we need to execute a search warrant immediately. If they're destroying evidence." A commotion erupts in the hallway. Through the door comes the sound of running feet and shouted orders. One of the federal agents bursts into the chambers. Wilson's wife just received a text message. "Someone's at the restaurant right now." Judge Martinez doesn't hesitate. "Get tactical units there now," she orders. "Ms. Chen, ensure the witness and his mother are secured." She turns to Marcus. "Your notebook may have just prevented them from destroying crucial evidence. You've done more than enough. Let the authorities handle it from here." But as Marcus watches the agents rush out, he knows this is just the beginning. His Pokemon notebook, started as a way to cope with long, frightening nights hiding from Rick, has transformed into the key that will unlock decades of corruption. The real story, the one that will change everything, is only starting to unfold. Through the window, he sees Rick being led to a police car in handcuffs. And for the first time in years, Marcus allows himself to smile. Sometimes he realizes the biggest changes come from the smallest witnesses. Pandemonium erupts. The mayor collapses, clutching his chest. Reporters sprint for the exits, and Wilson vaults over the defense table toward the back door. The bailiff tackles Wilson as Marcus's mother fights through the chaos to reach her son. Above the din, the judge's gavel cracks like gunshots, and federal agents suddenly materialize at every exit. Nobody leaves. Judge Martinez's voice booms through the speaker system, but her order is almost lost in the mayhem as years of carefully maintained facades crumble in seconds. Police Chief Parker draws his weapon, creating a new wave of screams. But before he can move, 2 FBI agents have him pinned to the ground. His service weapon skids across the floor, stopping at the feet of a terrified court reporter. Wilson, still wrestling with the bailiff, locks eyes with Marcus. "You don't know what you've done, kid," he shouts, his formerly perfect hair now disheveled, the mask of respectability completely gone. "Do you have any idea who you're dealing with?" A sharp crack echoes through the courtroom as the emergency exit bursts open. 3 men in expensive suits, faces Marcus recognizes from his notebook's sketches, attempt to flee but run straight into a wall of tactical officers. The FBI had anticipated this, positioning SWAT teams at every possible escape route. In the gallery, Mayor Brooks lies unconscious as paramedics rush to his side. His wife stands frozen, her manicured hands still clutching her Gucci purse. watching as her carefully constructed social status dissolves. Behind her, reporters who manage to stay inside are broadcasting live, their cameras capturing every moment of the unfolding chaos. "Mom." Marcus calls out, spotting his mother fighting against the crowd to reach him. Sarah Chen and a federal agent form a protective barrier around them as they reunite. His mother holds him tight, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry," she whispers. "I had no idea what you were going through, what you were carrying all alone." Over her shoulder, Marcus watches as Rick is led away in handcuffs. All his previous bravado replaced by pale-faced fear as agents read him his rights. Suddenly, a deep rumble shakes the building. Through the courthouse windows, black smoke can be seen rising from the direction of Wilson's restaurant. "They're burning everything," someone shouts. Agent Roberts immediately barks orders into her radio, mobilizing teams to secure the scene. Wilson, now fully restrained, starts laughing, a hollow, desperate sound that echoes through the suddenly quiet courtroom. "You think this ends with me?" he sneers. This goes all the way to. Before he can finish, his attorney clamps a hand over his mouth. But the damage is done. The FBI agents exchange knowing looks. Wilson's partial confession has confirmed their suspicions about connections to higher-level criminals. Judge Martinez, who has maintained her composure throughout the chaos, addresses the courtroom. Federal authorities are now taking jurisdiction of this case. All defendants will be remanded into federal custody. Mr. Thompson and his mother will be placed under immediate protective custody. The reality of those words hits Marcus hard. Protective custody means leaving everything behind: his school, his few friends, his life as he knows it. But looking at his mother's relieved face, seeing her stand straight and unafraid for the first time in years, he knows it's worth it. As federal marshals begin to escort them out through a secure corridor, Marcus glances back at the courtroom one last time. Wilson sits handcuffed and defeated, his empire crumbling. The mayor is being wheeled out on a stretcher. The police chief, stripped of his badge and gun, stares blankly at the floor. Their web of corruption, maintained for so many years through fear and influence, has been unraveled by a child's Pokemon notebook. Outside, the sound of sirens fills the air as more emergency vehicles race toward the burning restaurant. But even as Wilson's men try to destroy the evidence, Marcus knows it's too late. The truth, like the smoke rising above their small town, cannot be contained any longer. The storm he's unleashed will wash away decades of corruption, and from the ashes, something better might finally have a chance to grow. Within hours, the sleepy town transforms into a hub of federal activity. Marcus and his mother are whisked away as search warrants are executed across the city. His Pokemon notebook becomes evidence item number 1, its childish drawings of suspicious cars and license plates now worth their weight in gold. Wilson's restaurant reveals a basement level absent from any blueprints, filled with evidence of a massive criminal enterprise. The FBI's mobile command center, set up in the courthouse parking lot, buzzes with activity. Surveillance feeds show teams of agents raiding homes and offices across 3 states. On multiple screens, Marcus's careful drawings are being cross-referenced with surveillance photos, bank records, and known criminal associates. Agent Roberts stands at the center, directing operations while pointing to specific pages in Marcus's notebook. The kid's drawings match perfectly with our money laundering investigation, she explains to her superiors by a video conference. What we thought was a local corruption case has just blown open a pipeline we've been tracking for years. Those Pokemon Diddles, they're practically a roadmap to the entire operation. At the restaurant, despite the attempted arson, the fire department's quick response preserved crucial evidence. Behind a false wall in the basement, exactly where Marcus had drawn it in his notebook, investigators discover a sophisticated counting room. Ledgers, computer servers, and stacks of documents reveal connections to criminal organizations across the country. In a safe house 30 miles away, Marcus and his mother watch the news coverage on a secure tablet. Every channel shows aerial footage of the raids, with headlines screaming "Small Town Scandal Exposes National Crime Ring" and "Childy Witness Bra Angs as Down Fu or Repeat Empire." Look, Marcus points to the screen. They found the secret room just like in my drawing. His mother squeezes his hand, still processing how her son's late-night hiding spot had turned him into an inadvertent surveillance operative. A U.S. Marshal enters with fresh coffee for Marcus's mother and hot chocolate for Marcus. The FBI just found something interesting, she tells them. Those charity events Wilson hosted? They were auction sites for selling stolen art. That children's hospital wing he funded, built with drug money. Even the Christmas toy drive was a front for moving contraband. Marcus nods slowly. That's why they always had those weird crates in the basement before the toy drive. I drew them too, the ones with the Spanish writing on the side. Back in town, the dominoes continue to fall. The FBI's forensic accountants, armed with information from Marcus's notebook, follow money trails that lead to offshore accounts, shell companies, and hidden assets. Wilson's charitable empire crumbles as investigators freeze accounts and seize properties. At the police station, officers loyal to Chief Parker are being rounded up and replaced by state troopers. The mayor's office is sealed with crime scene tape, its computers and files being boxed up as evidence. Even the local newspaper editor is taken into custody, accused of helping cover up the corruption for years. The FBI's cyber unit makes a breakthrough by late afternoon. The dates in the notebook when Marcus saw them using their phones match perfectly with encrypted communications we've been trying to crack. An analyst reports, the kid basically gave us their whole scheduling pattern without realizing it. In a secure federal holding facility, Wilson finally breaks. Faced with mounting evidence and the prospect of a lengthy sentence, he starts naming names. His confession corroborates every detail in Marcus's notebook, from the weekly meeting schedules to the coded conversations about shipments and payments. As night falls, Agent Roberts visits the safe house with news. We've uncovered corruption going back 20 years, she tells them. Marcus, your notebook didn't just expose local crimes. It gave us the key to dismantling a national network. But, she hesitates, this means you'll both need to enter witness protection. At least until the trials are over. Marcus looks at his mother, seeing strength in her eyes where fear used to live. Will we be safe? She asks. Absolutely, Agent Roberts assures them. The people Marcus helped expose have connections everywhere, but we're already tracking down all their associates. Your son's notebook is helping us identify everyone involved. As Marcus prepares for bed in the safe house, he can hear helicopters in the distance still circling their small town. His Pokemon notebook, now sealed in an evidence room, has transformed from a child's coping mechanism into the centerpiece of what agents are calling the case of the decade. Tomorrow, they'll leave for a new life under new names. But tonight, for the first time in years, both mother and son will sleep without fear. From their safe house, Marcus watches on TV as his small-town scandal explodes across national news. His testimony triggers a domino effect of confessions and plea deals. Rick, his mother's abusive boyfriend, is arrested in a separate investigation sparked by Marcus's testimony. For the first time in years, Marcus sleeps without nightmares. 3 months into witness protection, Marcus and his mother, now known as David and Sarah Mitchell, settle into their new life in a quiet Pacific Northwest town. Their modest house, backed by towering pine trees, feels worlds away from their previous life. Marcus's mother has started taking online classes in social work, determined to help other domestic violence survivors. The morning news brings daily updates about the case. In another shocking development, the anchor announces 3 state senators have been indicted in connection with the Wilson investigation. Federal prosecutors credit the detailed observations of a 12-year-old witness, whose identity remains protected. Marcus's FBI handler, Agent Roberts, visits monthly, bringing news they can't get from the media. During today's visit, she spreads out photographs on their kitchen table. Your notebook helped us recover stolen artwork worth millions, she explains, showing images of paintings being carefully removed from hidden rooms. That's not all. Remember those weird meetings you documented at the golf course? They led us to a human trafficking ring. 15 people have been rescued. His mother wipes tears from her eyes as Agent Roberts continues. The Domestic Violence Task Force used your documentation of Rick's behavior to identify a pattern. They're reopening dozens of cases he helped cover up while working with corrupt officers. Your notes about police response times helped prove the department was deliberately ignoring abuse calls. At his new school, where he's known as David, Marcus joins the journalism club. His advisor, unaware of his true identity, praises his attention to detail and observation skills. He starts a private journal, this time featuring sketches of his new life, tall trees, peaceful streets, and his mother's increasingly frequent smiles. The trials begin in federal court. Though Marcus testifies via secure video link, his impact is undeniable. Wilson, facing multiple life sentences, finally reveals the full scope of his operation. The mayor, recovered from his heart attack, pleads guilty to decades of corruption. The police chief's confession implicates officers in 3 states. You started a chain reaction, Agent Roberts tells them during another visit. People are coming forward in other towns, reporting similar corruption schemes. Your courage showed them it's possible to fight back. She pauses, sliding a newspaper across the table. The headline reads, "Small-town corruption case inspires National Anti-Corruption Initiative." Marcus's mother receives her acceptance letter to a social work program. "I want to help others find their voice," she tells him over celebration pizza. "You taught me that speaking up can change everything." Her hands no longer shake when she reaches for things, and she started wearing bright colors again. Back in their old town, the changes continue. The corrupt police force is rebuilt from the ground up. The mayor's replacement, a reform candidate, establishes new transparency measures. Wilson's seized assets are used to create genuine community programs, including a domestic violence shelter. Late one night, Marcus finds his mother sitting on their porch, staring at the stars. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked softly. Speaking up that day in court, "We lost everything we knew." Marcus thinks about his old Pokemon notebook, now sealed in a federal evidence vault. He thinks about the scared boy who hid in alleyways, documenting crimes he barely understood. He thinks about Rick in prison, Wilson facing justice, and his mother finally free from fear. "We didn't lose everything," he replies, taking her hand. "We found ourselves." That night, as the Pacific Northwest rain drums gently on their roof, Marcus adds another entry to his new journal. He draws himself and his mother standing tall, no longer hiding in shadows. Above the drawing, he writes, "Sometimes the best things in life start with the courage to tell the truth." In their new town, where no one knows their story, they're finally writing their own happy ending. And somewhere, in a federal building, a worn Pokemon notebook continues to bring justice, one revealed secret at a time. The town's rebirth begins with Marcus's return. After 18 months in witness protection, with the major trials concluded and the criminal network dismantled, they choose to reclaim their real identities. The old restaurant is transformed into a community center, with programs for domestic violence survivors and at-risk youth. At the opening ceremony, Marcus stands tall at the podium, his mother beside him, both ready to help their community heal. The autumn morning is crisp as crowds gather for the center's inauguration. The building, once a symbol of corruption, has been painted in bright, hopeful colors. Where Wilson's fake charity galas once hosted criminal enterprises, real community programs now flourish. The basement, previously hiding dark secrets, houses a state-of-the-art computer lab for underprivileged students. Sometimes the biggest changes, Marcus tells the crowd, his voice steady and clear, start with the smallest voices. Cameras flash as he cuts the ribbon. Among the audience, he spots familiar faces. Agent Roberts, beaming proudly, Sarah Chin, now the district attorney, and several children from families helped by the new domestic violence programs. His Pokemon notebook, its mission accomplished, has been retired to a federal evidence archive. But its legacy lives on in the town's transformation. The new police force, led by a reform-minded chief, has implemented a revolutionary community oversight program. The mayor's office operates with unprecedented transparency. Even the local newspaper, under fresh leadership, has won awards for investigative reporting. Marcus's mother, now a certified counselor, runs support groups in the center. Healing happens in circles, not in silence, she often says to new arrivals. Her own experience, combined with her son's courage, makes her uniquely qualified to help others find their voice. The waiting room, where she works, displays a framed comic strip drawn by Marcus, showing a simple message: truth sets everyone free. The federal investigation sparked by Marcus's testimony ultimately led to 237 convictions across 12 states. Wilson's criminal empire, built over decades, crumbled in months. The stolen art was returned, trafficking victims were rescued, and millions in illegal assets were redistributed to community programs. But more importantly, the case became a blueprint for fighting small-town corruption nationwide. After the ceremony, Marcus walks through the center's halls, running his hand along the freshly painted walls. Each room represents a different kind of healing: art therapy for traumatized children, job training for abuse survivors, legal aid for those fighting corruption in their own communities. In the main office, a glass case displays his original Pokemon notebook cover, a reminder that courage can wear many disguises. "Your story changed everything," Agent Roberts tells him during the reception. "Not just here, but across the country. Other kids are speaking up. Other communities are fighting back. You showed them it's possible." As evening approaches, Marcus and his mother stand on the center's roof garden, a space once used for secret meetings, now growing vegetables for local food banks. The sunset paints the sky in hopeful colors as they watch their transformed town below. "We did it, Mom," Marcus says softly, watching families enter the center for evening programs. She hugs him close. "No, sweetheart, you did it. You showed us all how to be brave." Below them, the center's new sign glows warmly: the Phoenix Center, rising together. Inside, lives are being rebuilt, truths are being spoken, and healing is happening in every corner. Marcus takes out his new notebook, a proper journal this time, and sketches the scene, not of shadows and secrets, but of light and hope spreading across their reborn community. The last line he writes captures everything. "Sometimes the greatest acts of justice start with a child's courage to tell the truth, a mother's strength to support it, and a community's willingness to listen and change." As night falls, the Phoenix Center stands as a beacon in the darkness, its windows glowing with promise, its doors open to all who seek help or healing. And in its heart, a boy who once hid in shadows now stands proudly in the light, knowing that sometimes the best way to fight darkness is simply to be brave enough to speak the truth. The end.